Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the podcast. I'm absolutely thrilled that you are here. You can find the Billy Dees Podcast pretty much anywhere podcasts are found, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Stitcher, on down the line. With me right now is Julie. What's going on, Julie?
Hey, hello. I'm just happy that I got this microphone and headset thing working.
yes, we got it working. I got to tell you, it looks very impressive. It looks like, you could go to Mars wearing that thing. It looks like you're...
So true. Oh, appearances can be deceiving. Thank you so much for your help. I appreciate you, by the way.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know how much I help, but at least I got you in the right neighborhood. It's interesting because what we're going to talk about today is Generation X. And yes. And Julie, I guess before we get into that, let's just talk just a little bit about you. And where are you from? Where are you at right now?
I live in Crow's Nest Pass, Alberta, Canada, and I was born in Ontario.
Oh, okay. So you've been in Canada pretty much your whole life then?
Yeah, pretty much. There's a few years I lived. My dad was in the military, and we lived in Germany for 3 years. He was sent out there to make a new NATO base, so I did live in Germany for 3 years.
Oh, well, that's cool. I mean, I've never been to Europe, and I always wanted to go because, obviously they have so much, we have a house here that's 200 years old or 150 years old, and that's like a big deal. But out there, I mean, they have stuff that's centuries old.
Yeah.
So I've always wanted to go out there. Now I checked out your little Linktree thing. Yeah. And you are a cat lover, is that correct?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I love cats. There's actually a local woman here that does so much like volunteering, and so that's why I put up a link on there, my Linktree, because she did a wish list thing. So because I have people that if you're familiar with TikTok, sometimes people get stuff like to get sent to them. They'll put their PO box up.
Yeah, exactly.
But I don't want that. So I thought, well, if somebody wanted to do something, they could donate to her. So that's
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I take it you have cats then. You have some of your own.
So I have one, but I had two, but he just passed away 2 weeks ago.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Thank you. He was a rescue cat from Cozumel, Mexico, and it took us like 3 months to catch him. And then we had to bring him back to Canada. It was a whole big schmozzle, and he wasn't even supposed to live. But he lived another 2.5 years. So yeah, I love cats. I like rooting for like an animal that just doesn't have nobody, fighting for it. So I'll be the person that goes out and like, I'll help you,
Yeah. Well, that's interesting because you and I are both Generation X, and we're both cat lovers. I have my wife and I have two of them, and one in particular, the blonde one, gets all the attention because he's the rascal. He's you got it. Anytime we go away for any length of time, sometimes I have to put him in like on downstairs because he gets into stuff, and he got trapped a couple times. And, he's full of energy. He's a blast. But
What's his name?
Dexter.
Oh, fantastic name. That's a good name for a cat that's got spunk.
Oh yeah, he's got spunk. All right. The boomers. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but boomers are classified born between 1945 and 1964.
I think so, but I'm loosey-goosey with the definition. So it's like, I know for my page, especially on TikTok, I'm like, if you have the vibe of Gen X, you're Gen X, right?
You're Gen X, right?
Yeah.
A good friend of mine that's been on the program a couple of times, he's actually written a book about boomers and stuff. He's a comedian. And one of the things he said, regardless of what years you were born, if you don't remember the 60s, you're not a boomer. So like if you don't remember Martin Luther King, if you don't remember Kennedy, you're not a boomer, so what I have here is they have Generation X born from 1965 to 1984, and then millennials are 1985 to 2004. Don't quote me on that, but that's what I'm going with now.
Right.
Generation X has been called the forgotten generation because everybody talks about the boomers, and right now everybody blames them for everything. That's why the okay boomer thing.
Yeah.
And of course, millennials, they everybody's always talking about them. Nobody says too much about Generation X. Why do you think that is?
Because it is forgotten. Totally. And it's like, even now it's still like, we're still forgotten, except it's starting to be like, I honestly feel it's like the first time now we can have like a voice on social media. And it's like, there's a pride in being Gen X. Just if you see on TikTok, and I also see it on Facebook, a lot of people like they incorporate Gen X into their handle or their bio as a description.
Yes, I do see that.
That's huge. Like it's like when people are identifying like that, that's pretty big. So yeah, I don't know. I really don't know. But all I know is what I see happening, and I see it like gaming, like a lot of people having a lot of like feeling good about their experiences and what they have to share and offer to the world. Yeah,
well, I always joke, we're the forgotten ones because we really didn't do anything. There was no protesting. There was no, we kind of just, in my case, I drove down the street in my Camaro with Van Halen blaring out of the windows, and that was pretty much it. I mean, that was it.
Yeah, we call it in the town I grew up. We called it pulling manies. You just like drive up and down the main street. You turn around at the burger joint, and then you turn around in the parking lot at the funeral home. That was what you did, like over and over again all night. They'd be like, my parents, like, you burned through so much gas. It's like, what'd you do? Nothing.
Yeah. So what else would you say characterizes the Generation X besides hanging out?
Vast, huge array of music. There's no there's just everything, like hard rock, metal, thrash, country, classical, pop, everything, and old and new. And it's not like it just has to be, it could be like something that's brand new, and it could be something that's like super, super old, the music. Also, the real disdain for being told what to do, and what not to do. There's like that pushback. It's like, oh, I'm just going to do the opposite of just what you said, just to prove you wrong, right? Yeah. I believe that as well. Also, I believe there's a real acceptance and a deep understanding of just life and what people go through, so I see a lot of people like with the comments, because I know like in TikTok the community is so huge, right? And it's really interesting to see how people communicate with each other, and there's so much more like immediate forgiveness and understanding and empathy, Empathy is a tricky thing to do when you're messaging, because you can't actually be listening to someone, but there's empathy going on. Gen X are like really, really good at empathy, I believe. In my opinion.
Well, I wouldn't argue that I believe that's true. I do believe we have some good traits, and I think there's a certain understanding of other people that came with Generation X. I don't believe they had to be taught it. Like in earlier generations, you kind of had to have been taught it. But you mentioned the music. What were some of your favorite bands during the 1980s? Oh,
so it would be more what I remember. So this is the thing. It's like what I remember, and I keep default is Stone Temple Pilots, Pearl Jam, and Nirvana.
Okay, well, that was a little later.
It is a little later, right? But I graduated in 1993. So, so my brain, then that's what I could literally do those songs when I have, right? I'll do them. I'll listen to them over and over and over again. But like, then when I start, like someone will like mention another song, and I'll go and I'll look at it. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that song too. But honestly, if you ask me off the top of my head, that's what always comes out.
Okay. Yeah. That was the early 90s. When I was in high school, let's see, obviously Michael Jackson was exploding when I was in high school. Yeah. And I mean, that was a unique time. That was an exciting time. I don't know that the day and age of that kind of a superstar is possible today, because, the media and the categories of music are so fragmented. I don't know that you can just have somebody take over like he did.
Yeah, I agree. Because everybody has social media now too. So everybody has like some kind of platform. So, but then there was no cell phones. There was like no computers. Like you might have one person might have like some big massive computer, right? But so all like the hype and the mega stardom, it's even more exaggerated, I think, because there was
sure.
nothing else around, right?
Yeah.
You had TV.
You were also part of a generation that was coming in on the internet era. I mean, that's the early 90s. It was actually available yet, although not many people had it in the early 90s. By the time we got to the mid 90s, it was starting to become understood.
Yeah.
So you were actually brought up in the day and age of the internet.
Yeah, I was after high school for sure. So it was, I think it was, for some reason, I think it's like 1996, but maybe it was later than that. But it was like, I mean, I was out of school. So I was of voting age. So I wasn't a kid. Like and I remember it was going on to a chat room. And it was just so like rudimentary, and it's like so amazing. You can like talk to different people around the world.
In the chat, sure.
And like trying to get on the internet.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that was the dial-up. That was like a milestone was probably like Windows 95. That was a big deal. And then Windows 98, that was even bigger. And of course there was AOL. Everybody had AOL, and You've Got Mail. That was that whole deal. So you kind of came of age then. The Bill Clinton was the man. The 90s were good. As far as the economy goes, entertainment, like you said, music was very diversified, and it was a good time. I mean, you had everything like Metallica, and you had Dr. Dre, and you had everything. It was yeah. So
and when you grow up like that, of course, it's going to change, or it's going to shape your perspective, right?
Sure.
When you grow up and you're like, you like all this stuff, like it's not even a question. You're just like, oh, this is all it's interesting. It changes the way you look at the world differently than someone who is just like, this is how I am. I am just like a country singer or whatever. Like you can't help it. And so that's why I like to say Gen X is a mindset and a vibe, because there's a lot of people that are just like older or younger, and they're like that. They're similar. So the 90s had some absolutely killer movies, and I just don't. The attention seems to be on the superhero movies, and I just there's right now, and I'm just not into them. There's a couple. The Christian Bale, the Batman with the Joker, that one was particularly good, and there's been a few others, but for the most part, I'm not just to me they remind me of really good looking video games is what they look like. But back in the 90s, I mean, there was like Forrest Gump. Now something tells me you liked Forrest Gump. It was okay. I didn't love it. No, it was okay. I'd probably like it now. Yeah, but I didn't really. I wasn't like, it's a great. I really like Dead Poet Society. That's what.
Okay, there's another one. Yeah, I mean, 90s. I mean, there was Saving Private Ryan. There was Fight Club. Yeah. Did you like Fight Club?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, you did. Awesome.
Yeah. Absolutely.
My wife likes it, but I'm pretty sure she just wants to look at Brad Pitt's abs. His abs.
That's awesome.
I have abs, by the way. They're just under about a foot of fat, a foot, an inch or two. But they're there. Those were good times. And today there's so much, you mentioned TikTok, but social media in general, it's become so political. It's become so divisive. Why do you think that is?
Because everybody has an opinion, and they're finally being able to feel seen, heard, and appreciated.
Yeah.
Because that's like the underpinning driving need of like everybody, right? And so whereas you could sort of like, oh, I can say something now, all of a sudden it's like you have this magnified feeling of importance.
Yeah.
And I think it can get like super distorted when a person's self-esteem, I know this is going to sound like everybody says this, right? But I think this is going to help, is that when your self-esteem is like inflated, you feel good because you have attention. So then if somebody's making a comment, of course, if it's controversial or whatever, they're just gonna attract all that stuff. So they're gonna get like their ego, especially if it's shaky, which of course it's going to be if you're like deriving importance from just that.
Sure.
Feel even more and more. So it's just like it's this vicious cycle,
Yeah.
That's why I think.
Yeah. Now you're very optimistic. I only know that from your TikTok. Maybe we should kind of tell people what TikTok is. How would you describe it? Just the cliff notes. It's kind of a short video format driven app, correct?
Yeah. If you think of looking at, I guess the closest one people that might understand is Instagram and seeing little videos. However, it's more raw, real, and authentic. And anything sort of goes. You're seeing a lot more where it's not just polish and perfect lighting, perfect sound, perfect everything. It's just all kinds of things. And you can see a lot of, I think the other appeal of it is that you can be seeing random content from literally all around the world. So that it's not algorithmed to death. It's just like you can see random like people cooking on a big in a big pan in India, and then you see somebody in Germany, and it's
Well, I've noticed you have what's this? You don't have any problem putting yourself out there in terms of dancing and showing emotion. And have you always been like that?
No. Nope.
Funny. That doesn't come naturally. Did TikTok bring it out?
Yeah. I think it was like it sort of like happened all at once. I think I really like being on there because it's so creative and it's so easy to be creative. There's so many, it's not overwhelming. Like I don't know, I've tried other little, apps and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's just too much. It's like, it really is intuitive. I mean, like we spent 40 minutes trying to hook up my headset, right? Like I'm still like that, but I figured out TikTok. And I think having that where you can start to explore your creativity, because we're all creative, whoever you are, doesn't matter if you don't think you are creative. And then allowing that to come out it's a really interesting personal journey, especially now with what's going on this year with COVID. And for me, it's been such a gift. And in doing that, it inspires others to be themselves and to come out and explore and create too, right?
Yeah. Well, you've been very successful on there. You have a lot of followers, so you're doing something right. What would be your advice for someone? Let's say, I'm kind of curious about this TikTok. They've heard probably some negative things. There was some political stuff going on. We won't get into that, but let's set that aside. What advice would you have for somebody who's just starting out in terms of making videos? What would be your advice?
My advice would be to suspend judgment. And if you actually want to be on TikTok, if you find you're like, I don't like this, then that's totally cool. But if you are, suspend judgment and just start scrolling through and looking at pieces of content. Just suspend judgment and then start creating. Hit buttons. Just hit. You're like, I don't know what this does, and just hit it and see what it does. And it's super. Just create content. If you create content every day, you will get better. You will find your voice. There's absolutely no way that you can't improve if you make content every day, because things will make sense. And like, it's like little tiny skills of like, oh, today I learned like how to hit that button and it actually recorded the video. Like, yay me, right? And then tomorrow you already knew that. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm going to make a duet with someone. I figured out how to do that. Those skills stack on each other. They're small, but they make you feel good. And then you're going to be able to make lots of TikToks. That's my advice.
Well, another thing I would point out too is when you first get on, your habits in terms of what videos you watch or what subject matter you engage with is going to send you more of that. Yeah. So, when I hear people say, well, the only thing that's on there is, girls jiggling themselves. Well, it's probably because those are the videos you're watching.
Exactly. There's a very interesting feature. They can hit not interested. They can select not interested every time one of a video like that comes up, and you can sculpt like what you see. I know when I see stuff, I'll be like, if I don't like it, I will just block that person. I don't want to ever see that again,
right.
Or I don't want that energy or whatever. But if there's something that I'm like, oh no, I'll just hit not interested. And so you can, and it's easy, it's like right away.
Yeah, sure. And you can follow things by category, like you can hashtag, in my case, podcasting or whatever, and you'll see content that's related to that. And then the more you engage with those videos, the more you're fed. And then as you create, that community for that subject starts to grow. And that's kind of how you find your niche, I guess, is a good way to put it.
Yeah, exactly. It's responsibility, right? It's like, it's like, oh, all that's out there. No, it's you need to take responsibility to find out what content you're ingesting, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's what it is.
That's exactly right. And I'm not above watching girls dance. Don't get me
That's
wrong. I'm
okay.
not above it. Uh, I make sure my wife isn't facing the phone when I do. Uh, with that being said, I mean, there's good and bad experiences with
Yeah,
any social media platform.
absolutely.
How
Yeah.
do you deal with the negativity? Have you gotten much of it, or
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
yeah,
for sure. So it's about boundary setting. So this has helped me like understand what boundaries mean, how to set them. I'm a
yeah,
45-year-old woman. I never knew how to set boundaries. I thought I did until
yeah,
it started to grow on TikTok. And so what my first common issue is lots of people leaving like hateful comments at the beginning. If you first
yeah,
come on, you get like these people. But I find I have a lot of experience on social media. I mean, a few years of experience on Facebook and Instagram. So
yeah,
I knew that was going to come. So I was sort of ready for that. I'm like, that's not going to bother me. I just block and delete, right? But
right,
what I wasn't prepared for were personal messages coming in, and I would feel the need that I needed to respond to every message. And so
yeah,
you get these messages from people who are from men, and they just want to like hook up. And
yeah,
I'm getting super uncomfortable. So I didn't have the ability to just say no. I felt like I had to be nice, and I felt like
yeah,
I had to respond to everybody. So I would say LOL, and all that's doing is it's giving a green light.
yep,
Keep contacting me, keep messaging me. And there was some situations that they started to escalate. I'm like, oh my gosh, I
oh,
thank goodness. Like I was building up a community. I had friends because I go live on TikTok as well. And my friend said, Julie, these people are manipulating you because they know that you won't say no and that you're being nice and you're just going to
yeah,
make a joke and you're going to keep going. And that was like a slap to my face, like of reality. I was like, oh. So then
yeah,
I started to buy books on like setting boundaries, what that means. And it had to get really super clear on my identity.
really, okay,
Yeah. This is what I've learned is like getting super clear on your identity, what you stand for, because it's not about, this is how I would operate before. I thought, well, I'll just know when I get into a situation that this is a boundary. A boundary isn't about saying how somebody else needs to behave to placate you. A boundary is how we will behave when something happens. And we already have to know how we're going to do that before it happens. That blew
right,
my mind. I was like, oh, so then I got really clear. I'm like, well, I'm not going to be, I don't like, being called this or talked to like this or this. So then when when it happens, it was just easy for me to react.
yeah,
So yeah, I'm happy that it happened. I can't
yeah,
believe I'm saying this, but I wouldn't have done it. And it's changed so many other aspects of my life just doing that. It's freed up because I would always want to people please, make everyone feel really good about themselves. And if somebody else is feeling bad, I would feel bad. And
yeah,
just learning about boundaries, it's like, oh no, that person is allowed to feel bad. It doesn't mean I have to also feel bad. I was like, oh, I'm 45. I just learned this lesson.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I didn't realize some of the discussions that came up over the last couple of years, as far as the Me Too movement and all those things. When I started talking to some of my female friends, I was amazed that all of them overwhelmingly have had bad experiences. I mean, it wasn't like just and I didn't realize that so many men and have no problem. I had women tell me that when they get approached in a bar and somebody would ask for their number, they felt threatened if they didn't give them their number.
Yes.
So the one thing I'll let you comment on, and then we'll move on, is it's a different world for women sometimes, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And it's interesting that you said that. I had an experience earlier this year. I was out hiking alone and this guy like flashed me. I was like out in the bush, right? And
Okay.
I spend a lot of time. I used to be an Ironman athlete. I've done like
Oh, really?
18 Ironman races. I don't need like over
Wow.
70 other distance races. I've been traveling. I've been cycling by myself, training by myself all the time. Not that has anything to do, but this is still my need to explain and fortify myself, right?
Right.
So
That's okay.
anyway, yeah, he did that. So I was so rattled because he would not have done that had I been two big burly dudes with like a hunting rifle. And
Oh,
then
sure.
I started to and I started to feel like guilty and all these weird feelings. I'm like, I have to report this to the police, right? So
Yeah.
anyway, I chose to talk about it on social media and on TikTok, right? And it was very interesting because there was like, well, you shouldn't do anything alone. You shouldn't run alone. You shouldn't go hiking alone. There was that. And then I realized, okay, well, there's another aspect of this is that do I speak out or do I not? right?
Yeah.
And so I chose to speak out, but what I did make it very clear is that when people were, it was mostly men. I don't want to say it's all men because there's like tons of guys that were totally like, normal. They're like, I didn't know this. Like, oh my goodness,
Yeah.
But some would be like, well, that's not right. You shouldn't do this. Or they're telling me I would just block and delete them, because what I didn't understand is that within the comment section of my videos, there's a community that's building, and other women are afraid to speak up because just one comment from someone saying, well, you shouldn't, that doesn't make any sense. It's such an aggressive energy that it will shut down any further. So then I have to actually now act on behalf of the community, right?
Yeah.
So it's interesting.
You see, this is the thing. You just never know. I've been doing this a long time, and starting out talking about Generation X and everything, and you get these layers.
Yeah.
And that's what I was going to say. It's interesting that you're going this direction because so many of your videos are very, lighthearted. You're bouncing around, you're lip syncing, and then you get these ones where you have this tone that's different.
Yeah.
And I found that interesting. This is a good example of that. You really can speak from the heart, and you have some well-developed concepts that you talk about on TikTok as well.
Thank you.
Yeah. That's great. Speaking of engagement on social media, I can tell you that my history goes back in the 90s. Now, see, I'm a little older than you are. I won't say how much. By the time the 90s were rolling around, I was an active disc jockey. I was working a lot with bands. I was on the club circuit. And sometime shortly after that, for a little while, I did stand-up comedy. And there's a lot of bad behavior in bars. I mean, across the board. And men are certainly part of it, but they don't own a license on it.
Yeah.
Women can be mean. I mean, really mean. But for the most part, I didn't have too much. I did have a couple stalkers. I had male stalkers.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that it's anything like sexual per se. I just feel that when you're in the public eye and they see you getting attention, they see you causing reactions in large crowds. I understand, we mentioned Brad Pitt. Now, I was a real small-time local half-ass celebrity, for lack of a better term, and I got a little bit. I can't imagine what those superstars have. Anytime somebody approaches them, you never know exactly what's in their head.
Yeah.
So it's a dangerous world for everybody. And my experience on social media, Twitter has worked very well for me for the podcast, and I just don't engage negativity. When because like you said, no matter how you respond to it, even if you try to come up with some kind of strategy to gracefully acknowledge it, you could say F you to them 1,000 times, and in their mind, they're getting the attention that they want.
Yeah. And it's attracting more because then people see it's like, oh, they're creating content about this. They're showcasing this. So even on a subconscious level, people will like, oh, it's going to attract more of that, right? And it's turning away the people that that you want to have.
Exactly. Well, if anybody listening to this, they might say, "Oh man, I don't want any part of that." But there is a positive, and I know you. There's no doubt in my mind that you positively affect people. I mean, because you have this energy about your spirit. I know a lot of times I'll go through the comments and all that, and you really bring a lot of enjoyment to people, and that's got to make you feel good.
Oh, it does. I've had. I started, I think if I can impact one person each day, that would be amazing, right? And it's blown that, like when I get a message from someone saying like, especially this year, they've lost their job, they've been having really mental health issues, and something's helped them, or somebody has been watching, my content, and then they decide, they get the courage and they do their first TikTok.
Yeah.
Like, that's awesome. That's that's what life is about, right?
Yes.
Like, oh, it's so nice.
Yes, and I can see you light up. The energy is so sincere, and it comes across in your work. Let me just wrap this up by saying something about Generation X that is just a little on the serious side, in that the boomers are going to represent the largest aging population ever. And they already are, but they're starting to get to the age now where they're starting to have issues. That they're getting into the twilight of their life cycle. And I mention this because Generation X is going to have to be caregivers, unlike many other generations have not been. And what's interesting is also millennials are staying home longer. They're depending on their parents more. A lot of this is socioeconomic, and you have Generation X people now that are taking care of young adult children. They're in their homes. They're living in the basement, as everybody jokes about. And they're also getting into the age where they're going to have to take care of aging parents. Have you seen that? And what's your opinion about that?
I never thought of that, actually. But
Really?
I haven't. But so I guess my opinion on it is like, I feel like the circumstances that a lot of Gen Xers grew up in it's fortifying us.
Yes, yeah.
to be able to deal with that. And I think it's going to be inspiring other people as well. Like, so other generations, like millennials or Generation Z, Gen Y, whatever those are.
Yes.
I believe, because it's different when you're growing up and you don't have the skills, the perspective, the experience, the emotional maturity,
Yeah.
It's a different ball game now,
Mm-hmm.
I think it might be dark, but I think that if there's a leader, it's Gen X.
Yes, absolutely. Well, the only reason that I am aware of it is I interviewed an author a while back who's written about it. She's actually an attorney that specializes in helping people, manage their resources in a way that their parents can be taken care of and so forth. And it's kind of an issue that people are ignoring until it happens. Yeah. And I was one of those people. Now, my dad died years ago. My mom lived, she passed away a few years ago, but she was healthy well into her 80s. And I never gave it much concern at all. I knew she was in the back of my mind. She was going to die someday. Yeah. But one trip to the hospital, and all of a sudden she requires 24-hour care. And that just happened like in one day, one weekend. I came under the realization that I have something major to take care of here. And that's my author friend says is, think about these things while they're healthy so they can make the decisions and you can get things in place before that Sunday afternoon, in my case, in the emergency room, you realize, wow, everything's changed now. And that's something that Generation X is going to be impacted on probably more than any other generation, because boomers are, in fact, one of the largest generational groups, and they're going to be hitting that age. So that's a lesson I learned the hard way.
Thank you for sharing that lesson, because that would have been exactly me. I'm just not going to think about it until when, right? Yeah.
And that's a tendency of a lot of us, no matter what the subject is that's unpleasant. We don't everything's fine for right now, so I'm not going to worry about it.
Yeah.
And that would be a thing too. I think that one thing I like about your brand of positivity is it's rooted in realism. Because like I said, you get those quiet moments where you talk. And I do feel that positivity, very much like faith, has become a type of merchandise that people bottle and sell. Whether it be motivation and all these other things. And I believe your brand of positivity is something about self-empowerment. It's something that's fun, and you also deal with subjects realistically. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on the program. I think your TikTok account is just absolutely fantastic.
Thank
you. If people want to check you out, first of all, if you don't have TikTok, you have to download the app. It's free. What is your screen name on TikTok?
Julie Anderson 426. I have no idea why it's 426. It's just TikTok. Like, put that out there, and I never thought to change it. Julie Anderson 426. You'll find me.
Yes, and plenty of Generation X people on there.
Absolutely. We're a good crew, good community. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And, this is one of the few things that's come across recently that Generation X has excelled on, because like the Vine thing and everything was young.
Yeah.
Young. This here, Generation X people are always talking about their days of Ronald Reagan and Top Gun and all these other things. And it brings back a nostalgia. You can share.
Nostalgia. Yes.
Yes, you can share those memories with other people. Let me ask you this: what would be in terms of a parting shot? I guess
Okay.
what would be? I sometimes say a message of hope. I'm not sure that's appropriate, but what would be your positive leading message to anybody listening to this about Generation X and folded into the circumstances of today and all the COVID-19? What would be your positive message of hope?
Listen to your instincts. They never lie.
Okay. That's absolutely right to it.
Yeah, I got that. When you're talking, I'm like, oh, I got this one. That just like came up and it came out.
All right. Is there any other place, any public accessible place that you have online, or is TikTok your main show?
No, I'm on. You can actually find me like my link tree. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram, and I'm on YouTube. A little tiny bit on LinkedIn, but mostly TikTok and Facebook.
Yeah, I have a professional presence on LinkedIn. I came late to promoting the podcast. Actually, what I do is digital marketing, so I'm real familiar with YouTube and Facebook. But when I always had my own time, I always concentrated on the audio for the Billy Dees Podcast, and that's been around a long time. And just let the audience and let you know, my strongest following is certainly on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Listens from all over. I have, for some reason, Mountain View, California. I get a lot.
Oh, cool.
And I'm from Ohio, but so I'm kind of well known here, so I expect listens. Canada is another one, and the Russian Federation. I have no idea.
That's fantastic.
The Russian Federation. So I always want to say hello to those folks. It's just it's amazing to me that pops up on the map. But anyway, Billy Dees Podcast. You can find me on. I have a Facebook page for the podcast and a YouTube channel for the podcast as well. My Twitter home, my social media home has got to be Twitter. I think Twitter is built for podcasting because it's so topical, like podcasting is. And anything that's going on, let's say there's a debate going on in real time, then that's amazing to me. You can actually gauge people's reactions. Now, it's not scientific, but when I started in media and all that, and there was a debate, the call-in shows on the next morning, on the Sunday morning, on the radio drive morning shows, that's when everybody was calling in talking about the debate last night. Now you can get it in real time while it's happening. And because of that aspect of Twitter, it's folded very well into podcasting. I'm at Billy Dees on Twitter. So check me out there. You just have to be nice. It's okay it's okay to disagree, but you have to be nice. And I would love to have anybody shoot me a tweet on Twitter. Julie, absolute joy talking to you. You are welcome here anytime. So anytime something comes up that you want to talk about or cross promote or anything like that, make sure you contact.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you, and thank you so much for taking the time to do this. This was so much fun. Thank you.
Okay, great, Julie. Thank you very much. And thanks to our audience. Thanks for listening to the podcast. And until next week, I'm Billy Dees. Have a great day. Well, hello, everyone. I am Billy Dees from the self-titled Billy Dees Podcast. You can find me on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, and many more of the best podcast networks. Join me for my commentary and interviews. Follow me on Twitter, real easy to find, at Billy Dees. I am Billy Dees. I'd love to have you listen in.